the late nights at the office, the sudden interest in his appearance, the scent of unfamiliar perfume that clung to his shirts when he finally crawled into bed beside me, thinking I was asleep. Classic signs, all of them. But after 15 years of marriage to Daniel, I developed a talent for looking the other way. "Ellie, we need to talk." Those words, spoken over our silent dinner table on a Tuesday evening, finally forced me to face what I'd been avoiding. I set down my fork and met his gaze. Daniel looked different lately. Designer haircut, new wardrobe, gym-tone body. The transformation had been gradual, but unmistakable. He'd been remaking himself for someone else. "I want a divorce," he said, his voice eerily calm. "I've already spoken to my lawyer. You'll be receiving papers tomorrow." I felt something crack inside me, but I didn't cry. Instead, I nodded slowly, thinking of the texts I'd seen 3 months earlier when his phone buzzed while he was in the shower. The ones from Jessica, with heart emojis that made my stomach turn. The ones I pretended not to have seen. "How long?" I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. He had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Does it matter?" "I guess not." I stood up and began clearing the dishes. "I'll start packing tomorrow." Daniel looked surprised. He'd expected tears, pleading, maybe a fight. "That's it. 15 years, and that's all you have to say." I shrugged. "What would be the point? You've made your decision." I watched relief flood his features. He wanted this to be easy, and I was making it so. That night, he slept in the guest room. The divorce papers arrived the next morning. I read them carefully, noting that Daniel was being reasonably fair with the financial arrangements. I signed without contesting anything. 2 weeks later, it was done. 15 years of marriage dissolved with surprising efficiency. I moved into a small apartment near my sister's place. Daniel kept the house, the one we'd lovingly renovated together, for himself. And presumably, for Jessica. "I don't understand why you're not fighting him on this," my sister Kate fumed. "He cheated. He left you. You could take him for everything." I smiled. "I don't want to battle, Kate. I just want to move forward." What I didn't tell her was that I'd hired a private investigator the day after I found those texts, that I had a file of information about Jessica, and something else much more important. Something that would change everything. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I was having coffee at my favorite cafe when I overheard a barista mention that Daniel had made a reservation at Castellino's for that evening, our favorite restaurant, where we'd celebrated every anniversary for 15 years. That's when I knew it was time. I went home, opened my safe, and removed a sealed envelope. Inside was the report I'd received just days before Daniel asked for the divorce. A report I'd commissioned after finding a disturbing medical record while organizing our home office. Tonight, I would finally use it. I chose my outfit carefully that evening. A sleek black dress Daniel had always loved, paired with the diamond earrings he'd given me on our 10th anniversary. I styled my hair the way he preferred and applied my makeup with precision. Tonight wasn't about looking desperate or heartbroken. It was about appearing composed, confident, and completely over him. As I approached Castellino's, I felt surprisingly calm. Through the window, I could see them, Daniel and Jessica at our usual table by the fireplace. She was younger than me, of course. Blonde, polished, wearing a dress that probably cost more than our first month's rent in the starter apartment we'd shared as newlyweds. Daniel was gazing at her adoringly, the same look he'd once reserved for me. I waited until they had received their entrees before making my entrance. The maitre d' recognized me immediately. "Mrs. Cahill, we've missed you. Your husband just arrived with a guest." "I know, Marco. I won't be staying. I just need to drop something off at their table, if that's all right." Marco hesitated, then nodded. "Of course." I walked deliberately across the restaurant, feeling eyes turning in my direction. I kept my head high, my stride purposeful. Daniel didn't notice me until I was standing directly beside their table. His fork clattered against his plate. "Ellie, what are you doing here?" Jessica's eyes widened as she realized who I was. She at least had the grace to look uncomfortable. "Hello, Daniel." I smiled pleasantly. "I won't interrupt your dinner for long. I just wanted to give you this." I slid the sealed envelope across the white tablecloth. "Consider it a divorce gift." "What is this?" Daniel looked confused, glancing from me to the envelope. "Something I think you both should know." I turned to Jessica. "He's all yours now. Enjoy your freedom, Daniel." I started to walk away, then turned back. "Oh, and the salmon tartare here is excellent. It's what we always ordered on special occasions." 15 years creates a lot of traditions, doesn't it? I made it halfway across the restaurant before I heard the sound of paper tearing. I didn't turn around immediately. I wanted to savor the moment, letting the tension build. When I finally did look back, Daniel's face had drained of all color. Jessica was leaning forward. "What is it?" "Daniel, what's wrong?" I watched as he handed her the papers, his hands visibly shaking. The DNA test results were unequivocal. Daniel had a son, a 16-year-old boy living in Oregon with his mother, A woman Daniel had dated briefly before meeting me. A child he had never known about, never supported, never acknowledged. But there was more. The second document in the envelope revealed that Daniel had been diagnosed with a rare genetic condition 3 years ago, a diagnosis he had hidden from me. A condition he had potentially passed on to his son, who now needed medical information that only Daniel could provide. Marco appeared at my side. "Is everything all right, Mrs. Cahill?" "Everything is finally exactly as it should be," I replied, watching Daniel's world collapse around him at our special table. I walked out into the cool night air, leaving behind the whispers, Jessica's stunned expression, and the wreckage of Daniel's carefully constructed new life. Daniel was waiting outside my apartment the next morning. He looked terrible, eyes bloodshot, clothes rumpled as if he'd slept in them. Or more likely, hadn't slept at all. "How long have you known?" he demanded as soon as I stepped out. I regarded him calmly. "About Jessica? For months. About your son? I found out 3 days before you asked for the divorce." "Why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you use it against me in the divorce?" I unlocked my car door. "Because unlike you, Daniel, I don't use people as pawns. That boy, your son, he's not a weapon for our marital warfare. He's an innocent person whose life you've impacted by your absence." "I never knew about him," Daniel protested. "I know. I contacted his mother. She tried to tell you 16 years ago, but you blocked her number, changed your email. She eventually gave up." I looked him directly in the eyes. "But that doesn't absolve you of responsibility now. And my medical condition?" His voice cracked. "You knew I might have passed it to this kid I've never met? That's why you didn't fight the divorce." I laughed bitterly. "No, Daniel. I didn't fight because I finally saw you clearly. You hid your diagnosis from me for 3 years while I wondered why we couldn't conceive. You let me blame myself for our childlessness while knowing it was your genetic condition all along." Daniel looked away, shame finally breaking through his self-righteousness. "Jessica left me last night," he admitted quietly. "I'm shocked," I replied dryly. Finding out her new boyfriend has a teenage son and a potentially hereditary medical condition wasn't in her plans. It wasn't just that. She said she couldn't be with someone who would abandon their own child and lie to their wife for years. His voice was hollow. "She said if I could do those things, what would I eventually do to her?" Smart woman. Smarter than I was. Daniel reached for my arm. "Ellie, please. I made mistakes, terrible ones. But 15 years together has to count for something. We could try again. I'll reach out to my son. I'll make things right." I gently removed his hand. "No, Daniel. You should absolutely make things right with your son. He deserves to know his father and his medical history. But you and I are done. Because of Jessica? Not just her. Because you made choices every day for years, to lie, to cheat, to hide things that affected both of us. Those weren't mistakes. They were deliberate decisions that revealed your character. So that's it. Your revenge is complete." I shook my head. This wasn't about revenge. If it were, I would have dragged your name through the mud in divorce court or demanded everything we owned. This was about truth. Something you never valued. I got into my car. "Your son's name is Ethan. He lives in Portland with his mother, Claire Benson. He plays basketball and wants to study engineering. He's been asking about you his whole life. That's who you should be focused on now, not me or Jessica." As I drove away, I caught a final glimpse of Daniel in my rearview mirror, standing alone on the sidewalk, looking lost. For the first time in months, I felt completely free. Not because I had hurt him as he'd hurt me, but because I had finally stopped carrying the weight of his lies. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply letting truth do its work while you walk away towards something better.